Good afternoon and welcome to the long-awaited 8th episode of Ken's Kitchen. Since the last time we cooked, I received this from one of my students. Thank you very much, Olivia. So this is the maiden voyage for the official now Ken's Kitchen apron. Today, as you might tell, we're going to be doing a little bit of baking and not my sort of regular Italian meal cooking, although bread is certainly a part of Italian cuisine. This one was prompted by the meteoric rise in bread prices, and what I discovered is the not so difficultness of making bread. So let's go and see just how easy it is. All right, we're just going to jump right in, start with the ingredients. So 4 cups of unbleached bread flour, all-purpose, unbleached all-purpose flour would work also. 2 teaspoons kosher salt, 2 teaspoons regular granulated sugar, room temperature butter for the bread pans, and old school dry yeast. There's many discussions and approaches on how to use yeast. I'm just using like my mother used when I was a kid. So old school, still around, active dry yeast by Fleischmann's. There is something called proofing, so we're going to do that right now. Proofing is just a complicated way of saying making sure the yeast is active and not dead, because it is an organism, so that you can use it. 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. Your faucet is fine. The packet says between 100 and 110 degrees, with most water heaters set to 120 degrees. Faucet temperature is just fine. And 1 teaspoon of sugar. So I'm going to take, since I'm going to mix the proofing mixture in with the bread ingredients, I'm going to use the proofing ingredients from the bread ingredients. That just sounded way better in my head. So I'm using ingredients that I've already measured out. All right, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1/4 cup of water, and the yeast. Boom. Okay, we'll do a quick mix. And you're waiting for that to bubble up, show some evidence of life. So the packet says you should see it within 10 minutes. So I'm just going to start with that and set it aside. All right. Oops. All right, so just set that right there. Get rid of this. All right, I did already cook this bread recipe, mixing by hand and not kneading. So I am making a slight change. We'll see how it goes. I've never done this approach. Same recipe that I used earlier this week, but I'm going to use the stand mixer in the interest of time and ease, and I'm going to knead it because the bread that I made earlier, I didn't knead. Very robust, very tough, really good fresh, not really good leftover. So I'm going to do a slight kneading on this. All right, so let's get the dry ingredients in here. Easy peasy. Don't ask me why I use this metal bowl when I could have put it in that metal bowl. I don't have an answer for you. Okay, the salt, the remainder of the sugar. Alright, get those blended in. I'm going to use a potato masher. Don't be mad at me. I don't have one of those cool dry ingredient things. That's that. Lock that in here. All right, set the mixer paddle, which we will do first. First order of business, make sure you know how to install the mixer paddle. There we go. All right. This looks like it's bubbling a wee little bit, but I'm going to let it sit until I get bubbles across the top. So I'm going to get the rest of the water for the mixture, and we'll see you in about 8 minutes. All right, not quite 8 minutes, but we already have some good bubbling and activity going on in the measuring cup, so I'm sure the yeast is alive and well. While I was waiting, I took the butter, about 2 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and buttered the pans. So these are our loaf pans. So I'm just going to set them aside, get that done. Never waste any time. While you're waiting for something to happen, do something else. All right, so got that. And I forgot to mention, since we are going to knead the bread dough, which again I didn't do last time, I'm going to use a kneading hook and do a machine knead for about 2 minutes. We're gonna find out together how that goes. So hold on one second. All right, my daughter's gonna have to wait until this is sitting and rising. Okay, so here's the bubbling. If you can see that, you can't really, trust me, there's bubbles in there. So since this was part of the bread ingredients, that goes in. Boom, and I'm going to use the remainder of the water called for by the recipe to rinse out the yeast proofing mixture. Got that done. Set this over here to dry since I don't need to wash it. Okay, let's go. Tell me you want to turn this thing on high just to see what would happen. No. All right, low should be fine. All right, it's just doing its mixing thing. You can imagine what would happen. Yeah. Don't forget to lock it, very important. You can tell I don't use this very much. There we go. It's basically a sticky ball. We're done. So off, unlock. And that's what it looks like. Sticky dough. So let's see if we can remove it from the mixing paddle. Might not have been one of my best ideas. We'll see. No, it's not bad. It's coming off. All right, so you just pull it apart. It's like taffy, not that I have any experience pulling taffy. It's about what I would imagine pulling taffy is like. All right. Yeah, this mimics what it looked like earlier this week when I did it by hand. All right, quick rinse, excuse me. All right, no problem there. We're gonna go 2 minutes. Machine knead. All right, so this comes off, rinse that off. Dough hook. There's a little thingy. That was easy. All right, put that down. Lock it, very important. Okay, I'm going to set the microwave timer for 2 minutes. And go. Don't know what speed, so we'll just, if it's supposed to mimic hand kneading, I'll keep it on low. And while that's happening, I'm going to rinse off the paddle attachment. Easier to rinse off food when it's wet and fresh. Okay, looking good. Oops, not quite. Looks smooth. Easy peasy. Look at that. Okay. Continuing to rinse off stuff while we're waiting. Another minute. These could just air dry. The bowl I didn't need. Looks pretty good. Looks like a dough ball, all right. All right, 30 more seconds. Longest 30 seconds ever. And transfer it to a glass bowl. I'll tell you why in a minute. All right, time, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Done. Here's what it looks like, nice, smooth dough, much less sort of shaggy and meh than the others. Okay, I'm gonna let this rise now for about an hour and a half, maybe 2, and it needs to be in a warm environment. Well, warm, how vague is that? So what I discovered is that I'm gonna set my oven to preheat, and the minute it lights off, if you have a gas oven, you'll know what I'm talking about. The minute it lights off, I'm gonna give it 1 minute of heating. That'll get it to about 90 to 100 degrees, which is fine, and that's where the dough will rise for an hour and a half. So I'm just gonna set that right now to start, and I'm going to transfer into a glass bowl. Oops. Ho! Not bad, not bad. It's about what you'd expect. If you were going to hand knead this, you would put this out on your work surface with a little bit of extra flour. Okay. Just release it. Come on, come on, come on. Sort of combination art clay, Play-Doh, slime, you know. Kids fun. All right, easy, that's it. It even kind of smells good. Let's see about getting this mass a little bit off. All right, so I'm gonna set it like this. I'm not punching it down, I'm gonna do that after the first rise, but I'm kind of setting it so I can see how much it's risen. I don't think any more than an hour and a half or 2 will be needed. Needed, bread kneading, get it? Okay. Don't know. All right, so I'm waiting for my oven to light off, and the temperature will tell me when it's about 100 degrees, and as soon as it reaches 100, turn it right off. Doesn't matter what you preheat it to, preheat it to 375 or 400 like you're doing a roast, but let it get right to 100, turn it right off. That goes in, and then we will get it after the rise. So, rather than sitting here and waiting for that, I will say goodbye for now, and we'll be back in an hour and a half when it's ready for the punching down, loaf pan loading, and baking. So the prep work, as you can tell, super easy, and hopefully it's going to come out super delicious. You and I are going to find out together. All right, be back in an hour and a half. All right, the dough has been rising for 90 minutes, so let's pull it out and see how it did. Yeah, that's definitely risen dough. Yeah, from that little tiny dough ball to this. All right, so this next phase would be punching it down a bit, loading it in the loaf pans, and then letting it rise again a second time for about, oh yeah. You just sort of punch it down like this. And it deflates, you can hear it hiss. That's what the recipe said to listen for, that's why I went, oh yeah, that's what I am. Okay, so punch down and scrape it from the sides. I should probably use a fork for this, but I guess I can just use my hands. Okay, should probably use a fork now for this step. 2 forks, excuse me. Just going to separate the dough and load it into the loaf pans. So we're just kind of, as you can see, just kind of separating it until it tears. There we go. It's sticky, but you notice there's no residue, so just kind of keep doing that. Come on. Okay, looking for a separation. I think that's good enough. Oh. Okay, this is not going to be graceful. So pick up about half, like that. Come on. right in the pan. Not bad, not bad. Oh, come on. Here we go. Okay. And the other half, I don't really think that's half and half, but we'll see. Again, you can sort of tell it's sticky but not wet. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Why did we think this was so much fun as kids? It's just annoying now. All right. So, I'm just sort of smoothing it into the loaf pan as best I can. I do not have any artistic tendencies for these loaves. They just come out a little globby. What I did earlier this week, I cooked it in a couple of small bowls, baked it in a couple of small bowls. I had these two, you know, like soup rounds is what my mother would call them. And that was fine, but I'm going to try to make it more loaf-sized and shaped so I can use it for traditional sandwich bread and toast. All right, that's good. Got it. Quick rinse. So I'll show you the loaf pans in a minute, and we'll set it aside for its second rise. No more kneading, no more punching, nothing, just a second rise. And to make sure it's reasonably warm where it rises, I'm going to set the oven for the cooking temperature. Which is 425. So here are our loaf pans. They look like that. So this is very low. No idea how high it's going to bake, to rise the second time and to bake. So I don't know if I'm going to get the height of the bread that I want. I wasn't sure, 1 or 2 loaf pans. I might consider just putting both of this amount in one loaf pan. But if it cooks up big and nice, then this is correct. If it still stays flat and it's more like flatbread or crackers, then I'll know to load this up more. But I'm figuring it out as I go along. So these things are going to sit on the stove. The stove is preheated to 425, which is the baking temperature. So I'm going to set these on the stove for 30 minutes, then pop them in the oven. So see you in 30 minutes. All right, all set. Catch you later. The pans are done with their second rise. So yeah, we did get quite a bit more volume. Whoops, almost dumped that out. Quite a bit more volume than I thought. So I decided while I was waiting to try one more thing to kind of fancy this up, and that's to do a melted butter basting before the baking. So the second rise was 30 minutes. The oven is preheated to 425, and I'm just doing a melted butter baste on the top. So that's it. We'll get these in the oven. While I'm doing this, let me give you the baking instructions. The baking instructions will be to bake for 15 minutes and then to immediately reduce the temperature, the oven temperature, to 375 degrees and then bake for 17 minutes longer. After that, take it out and release the bread to a cooling rack, which I will have set up the next time you see me after the next break. And if you think that the bread needs a little more baking, you can bake it for 5 minutes out of the loaf pan, 5 minutes longer in the 375 degree oven. So those are the baking instructions. The basting is done. I'm going to pour this butter back into the dish. Waste not, want not. Okay. Rinse that off later. These are ready to go in. So 32 minutes, give or take that last 5-minute cook time. We'll see you then. Timer just went off, so the second 17-minute cook for 32 minutes total has just completed. So here's my cooling rack. A couple of cutting boards as trivets. Let's see how they look. the oven on because I'm not sure if I'm going to do a second bake, but I don't think so. Tell me that doesn't look awesome. Oh, Smell-O-Vision works for bread too. Oh, here's the other one. Just as good. All right, let's see if they release well. Oh, yep, no problem. Done, that was easy. And the bottom looks just as yummy. All right, let's set this in here. The other one, no problem. Yep, easy, easy. Done. Oh, very nice. I don't think we're gonna need that second 5-minute bake. They look dark and crusty enough as they are. Set the microwave for 20 minutes and then we'll be back for our final farewell, but after 20 minutes of cooling, we're gonna slice it up just to see how it looks and yeah, how it tastes too. So catch you in 20. 20-minute cool off done. Let's take a quick slice and see what it looks like. Ooh, still nice and warm. Sounds crusty and crunchy. Oh, looks good. Okay. So definitely has the sort of, you know, bubbles and voids of regular bread, so I don't think it's too dense. It's got a great crust on the outside. All right, I'm good. That's good. The only thing that's missing is a little bit of butter. Be right back. Yeah, don't get mad at me. The only way butter could possibly hurt you is if you got hit by a butter delivery truck, so. I'm calling this a win. All right. Way cool. Well, here's the cross section. Still a little lower than I'd like for, you know, what do you want to call it? General use sandwiches and toast, but darn good bread. So I think I got the recipe down. I'm not going to change it and maybe double it up. Not sure if I need a different loaf pan or just use the loaf pan I have with a lot more crowning. All right, we're calling this done. Hope you enjoyed that. So until next episode of Ken's Kitchen, bon appetit.